initial vision when we moved in was to redo this deck pretty quickly. However, we realized having 2 kids and a backyard that's not fenced in, having this deck the way it is actually really handy, because if I'm cooking dinner, the kitchen window is right here. I can let the kids out on the deck. My husband installed this gate here. My oldest can obviously open it, but he knows he's not allowed to let my youngest out. And then we had just this old like wire fencing. We put that all up because obviously this is not to code, and how easy is it for a 1.5-year-old to just try and slip through there and fall? So he put this all up around the entire perimeter of the deck, and then we literally just threw all the kids' toys up here. So we've got their little tiny pool, we've got the sandbox that usually holds all their toys, but as you can see, they're everywhere. So this has been really nice because if my youngest wants to go outside and I'm busy, then we can just throw them out here. So I actually don't think we're going to be redoing this deck anytime soon, just because right now its function is really important and we don't want to mess with that. My husband does not like these stones. He doesn't like the gaps in between them, and they've all shifted over the years, so they're not really level. Our initial vision was to just make this deck a little bit bigger and then have steps coming down to a second tier that would sit down on the grass there. But then we started thinking maybe we should have the second tier down here and just completely cover up these stones. So I don't know, we haven't really figured out our plan. And again, because we're not going to do the deck right now, it's on the back burner. We haven't really thought too much about it. So you come down the stairs, and we actually built this mud kitchen this summer, and the kids have been enjoying it. We just went to Value Village and bought like old pots and pans and cups and stuff like that. I got this sink on Kijiji, I think for $20. So we usually have one side filled with water and one side filled with sand, depending on if it's rained or not. This is supposed to be like the little oven with the stove, and the drawer right now is just sort of like a stool for our youngest so he can reach here. We got this little table and chairs from friends' parents, and they've been great. We actually had supper out here the other night on these chairs and this little table, which was really cute. And this here was the sides for our sandbox, as well as a canopy over here. And we got some rain one night that was pretty hefty, and it actually tore it down and broke the wood, which we weren't too impressed with. All of this wood, including this wood here, was all from the bathroom before we redid it. So we repurposed all of it and just used the old boards to make this mud kitchen. All of this we're not sure what to do with yet. I mean, it's in decent enough shape. We could make something out of it. It's just pulling out all the nails is not fun. They are huge. And so we have to figure out what we're going to do with that. And then these were in our shed, and they're really nice. So we're trying to figure out what to do with these, if we have any project for them, or maybe we can sell each of them on Kijiji or something. So that's another project. So then we come over here. My husband hung this swing for the kids. It's not in the best location because you can see it kind of drops off there. So, I mean, my youngest doesn't go very far, so it's fine. But my oldest likes to swing pretty high, and I get so nervous when he goes over that ridge. He's fallen before and hurt himself, so it's way up in that tree. But we have so many trees in our backyard, but at the same time, we have none that are good for hanging a swing. So over here under the deck, my husband and my son have built this robot, and his head has fallen off, and I would like to burn it, but my son is pretty attached to it. So for now, our headless robot stays here with our Tonka truck. This is an old chaise that we had, and the cushion we had for it in our old house got ripped, so we threw it out. And we've only got the one, and if I'm gonna have a chaise in my backyard, I'd like to have 2 that match. So we've gone back and forth. My husband wants to keep it and clean it up. I want to get rid of it. So it's just sitting here for now because we haven't decided. And then over here is a greenhouse we built last spring, sort of at the height of our first COVID lockdown. Before we had the greenhouse, we were actually using this whole space to grow like our vine plants, because this was the area that got the most sun. So we haven't actually moved our trellises yet. And there's some plants that are growing in here. This has been pretty neglected. like I said, because we knew we weren't doing much to the backyard this year, we've kind of neglected it. This is an old well, and actually there is water in there, and we do have a pump and it does work, but obviously we keep it closed because we do not want our kids falling in there. That's the side walkway that goes out to the front. We redid this whole section the first year we lived here. So we put in some gardens along either side, and we put new patio stones. And my dad actually gave us a bunch of old patio stones he wasn't using, so we're going to continue the walkway out past the greenhouse, probably to about here. And there's a couple of broken stones that we need to replace there. And then we would maybe spray paint them or paint them a little bit of a nicer color. And that would kind of finish off the walkway there. Here, every time my husband finds like a raspberry or a blueberry or, oh, sorry, not a blueberry, like a raspberry or a blackberry or a, I don't know if he's found any other ones. But anyways, we've been keeping them here and letting them grow. So I think this is year 2 or 3. And we've gotten a couple little fruits, but they still need some time. These trees were wickedly overgrown. So my husband chopped the tops all here, and you can see we have to still do these ones here to try and get some more sunlight in our backyard. But that was a couple days of getting up there, chopping them up, getting all the branches, and then burning them in our burn barrel. So one thing I would like to try and get done in the next couple of months is a fire pit. So we have a vision for a fire pit that's built into the ground and then attached to something called a rocket mass heater, which I suggest you Google if you don't know what it is, because I won't be able to explain it properly. But essentially, it's like we would build a bench that kind of goes around the fire pit, and then you actually build a fire inside the bench, and it warms up the whole seating area. So we would have a fire pit with warmed seating, which would be really cool. The fire pit itself, I think we could get done in the next couple months because it's not very costly and it's not hard to do. The benches, I mean, I think they have to be made on a brick or cement, so I don't know how we would do that. I don't see that happening this year, but that's the vision. These are old telephone poles. So we had these, well, we had one of these utility poles in the front of our house, but it was cracked and it needed to be replaced. So when the city came by to replace it, I think they had like 3 other old ones on the back of their truck. And my husband asked if he could keep all of them because we had this vision of creating like a very natural wooden, sort of like, I guess sort of Montessori-ish play structure for the kids. But these were huge, obviously. I mean, this is only half the size of one, maybe not even, maybe a third of the size. So he had to cut them in half, cut them in 3s, sometimes quarter them, and then get them somehow moved all the way back here. He used a friend for help, got them all the way back here, and eventually we'll probably hydro excavate so we can use this pressure washer to dig a big hole in the ground and then get these poles down in securely enough that they're not going to move. We've got all those over there and then these ones. So eventually our vision, I think, would be actually just doing it right here, having like a big play structure, fun area with like nets and ropes and a whole bunch of fun things for the kids. And then we come over to what we lovingly refer to as the back 40. So this is actually right here is where the gate that's now up on our deck is from. So we just cut it to fit the deck because we never used it here. We would actually like to get rid of this fence and move it to the back of our property. But for now, it kind of hides the hideousness that is our back 40. We've had to prune these trees a few times to get them smaller. And they have thorns. They're not fun to prune or burn. You come back here, honestly, this is a lot of garbage. It really just needs to go, we just need to go through it and clean it up. But again, it's just not been a priority. So we have some old broken patio stones. We have a ton of old bricks from when we took out the interlock at the front of our house. This is from when we dug out our driveway by hand. So it's some leftover gravel and a whole bunch of dirt. I have no idea what the plan is with that, but we dumped it here for now. This was from one of our old houses. It was fencing and a gate, and our plan was we brought it to this house to put in at the side of the house, but we never did that, and it's since been used. Here on the very top, we have like fire retardant bricks, and those would be used in the rocket mass heater. And then again, just more bricks left over from are interlock. Some of them have been cut, some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. And our retaining wall near our driveway had some of these bricks. So we had just a few of those left over. So I don't know what we'll do with them. We used to have huge cedar hedges in the back, which I'll show you where they were, but we cut all those down. And then just with pruning all of our trees over the years, this is the pile that we have of sticks and logs and like literal, like pretty much trees. So there used to be a huge pile here. We have slowly gotten it down to that size. This is mostly just from this year, from topping those trees that were over there. Those I think have just been collected over the year. That is an old fish tank, and we didn't know what to do with it. My husband loves fish tanks. We don't really have a good spot for it in our house unless it goes in the basement, which I wouldn't be against once the basement is finished. We have kept it just because it's huge and it would be expensive to replace. And my youngest, we actually just went to the pet store this morning and he loved the fish. He was like shrieking with happiness running around looking at all the fish. So there is a good chance this will get set up in our house sooner than later. And then it's just a whole bunch of overgrown. Like our property goes to that big tree over there, and this is like, I don't even go in here. This is just overgrown everything. If you come over here, we've also, so we're really big about recycling and composting and using our own cuttings and stuff to help make our gardens and our grass better. So that's sort of what we've done here. So we have this one that's working on composting. This has probably been here for about 2 or 3 years. So it used to be higher, it's getting smaller. This is another one my husband has built. And this one was one he built, and I don't know what happened to it. I never even asked him, but it looks like that. He started to build it, or he had it built and then it got pulled apart, I'm not sure. Our property essentially goes right up to, you can see their fence, so our property line would continue. So with that pile there is not ours. So the property line kind of comes and intersects right through here. Back here is a lot of my husband's old work stuff. Most of this stuff actually can go, and most of it is metal. Obviously not our snowblower, we need to keep that, but most of it is metal. And all we just had to do is literally take it to the scrapyard and probably even make a couple bucks off of it. It's just finding a day to haul it all out to my husband's truck and get rid of it all. For this, these are just old chemical containers he has, like pool shock and stuff like that. They're all empty. Again, just stuff we could take to the dump and be done with it. These are winter tires. We're hoping to sell this winter when people are looking to get tires put on. That back there, you can see, that's our giant Jenga. We need a better home for that. And then we have our shed, and I won't take you in our shed, but it's just more storage. So if you come over here, we have a whole bunch of sand, a snow shovel, and then we get over here into where those logs and stumps and trees are. And again, this is very foresty back here. We always joke that it feels like we're camping when we're back here because there's a bunch of trees. You know, it's like a forest floor. It's not groomed at all. And then over here behind our leftover driveway piles is our compost. We use this regularly. We always toss out, like, all of our green bin stuff gets thrown in here. My husband mixes it regularly. We use it every spring in our gardens. So it's hard to tell because of all the stuff that's here, but this actually was a compost area before we moved in, and it does have sort of an outline made with like railroad ties or something. Talking about all the wood that's at the back of the house, all along here and all along here when we moved in were big cedar bushes, but they were half dead. They were really scraggly and we didn't like them. And then actually right here, and you can't see the stumps because we've now built the mud kitchen over it, but there was a giant cedar hedge that came way up past the deck. But it was just, again, it was like there were so many bugs and spiders and it just blocked a lot of the light and we didn't like it. So we tore that whole thing down and got rid of all those. So I think most of them have been burned. I think the stuff that's back there isn't the cedar hedges anymore, but we've taken a lot of stuff down and have had to do a lot of burning over the years. So really the vision for this, because there's so many trees, I don't see us being able to grow grass very well or plants back in this area. So we have talked about, like, once we remove that fence back a bit, probably making this the primary, like, kids play area. You know, maybe moving the swing back here. If we ever got like a swing set or anything, having that course there, we could move the trampoline back here and basically, you know, smooth this all out so that it's flat. And I don't know what we would put on top of it, but something that the kids could easily play on that wouldn't hurt them too much. And then you don't have to worry about like trying to keep it neat or cut the grass or anything like that. But it definitely, we have a lot to do. We've talked about renting a wood chipper to just get rid of all these. We want to build a really nice structure to store all our wood. So we have to cut all this up still, and then we'll build like a really nice structure back here to store all the wood into. So maybe that in the compost, and then the rest would be the kids area. And then that would leave us with the rest of this backyard, which is really the area we use now. So we're pretty used to this space, which would have the nice fire pit, the bigger deck, that would have a nicer seating area. And then, I mean, we always say, you know, if we were going to live here for a number of years, looking into a pool or a hot tub. But if we aren't and we're going to move, then we wouldn't bother with that. So